I'm JD. I'm an alcoholic. I'm a spiritual being and recovered from addiction to alcohol and drugs. Could we please start this meeting with the we version of the Serenity Prayer, followed by a moment of silence for those who are still sick and suffering. And please, when we say the Serenity Prayer, say it like you've never said it before. Hear it like you've never heard it before. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I'm JD. I'm a spiritual being in recovery from addiction to alcohol and drugs. I'm an alcoholic. What can I say? I'm glad to be here. And so today we're going to continue on the big book study we started last week. We're reading Spiritual Experience Appendix 2. For me, that was such an important part, and I started it last week. And if you missed last week, please go and read Appendix 2, Spiritual Experience. Because as I was taught, this book, the 12 Steps, is about having a spiritual experience, a spiritual awakening, your version of it, so that you don't need to drink anymore, that you don't need to take anything else into your body, because you find your spiritual path, and that's all you need. And for me, for sure, I was empty, and I now I'm full. I have the sunlight of the Spirit, as it said. So we're going to start at the beginning, at the preface to the 4th edition. And myself early on in the days, and many others, why do we got to start there? And in spiritual traditions, we need to know lineage. We want to know, where did these teachings come from? And in this path of the 12 steps, it's the same thing. We want to know where it came from, why is it the way it is, and why does it work? There's proof that it works. It's been around, maybe not as long as Buddhism and Christianity, but it's been around for a long time, and it's held solid to its foundation, and this is why. So if you have a big book, pull it out, open it up to the preface. If you don't have one, just Google AA.org preface, and you'll be able to get a PDF of it. Okay, and that's where we're going to start today. Preface. This is the 4th edition of the book Alcoholics Anonymous. The first edition appeared in April 1939, and in the following 16 years, more than 300,000 copies went into circulation. The second edition, published in 1955, reached a total of more than 1,150,500 copies. The third edition, which came off the press in 1976, achieved a circulation of approximately $19,555,000 in all formats. So when I hear people say, oh yeah, AA doesn't work, the 12 steps don't work, and then listen, millions of people are reading this, millions of people are doing this work. This is the basis of it. There's a reason that it holds up. And we're going to pound this home, because as you go through this process, whether it's your first time or your 5th time, the doubts are going to come up. And these are the things that we keep coming back to, right? Why am I doing this? Because it works. Because the book has become the basic text of our society and helps such large numbers of alcoholic men and women to recover, there exists strong sentiment against any radical changes being made to it. Therefore, the first portion of the volume, describing the AA recovery program, has been left untouched, and the course of revisions made for the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th edition. The section called The Doctor's Opinion has been kept intact, just as it was originally written in 1939 by the late Dr. William D. Silkworth, our society's great medical benefactor. The 2nd edition added the appendices, the 12 traditions, and the directions for getting in touch with AA, but the chief change was in the section of personal stories, which expanded to reflect the fellowship's growth. Bill's story, Dr. Bob's nightmare, and one other personal history from the first edition were retained intact. 3 were edited and 1 was retitled. New versions of 2 stories were written with new titles. 30 completely new stories were added. The story section was divided into 3 parts under the same headings that are used now. In the 3rd edition, Part 1, Pioneers of AA, was left unchanged. 9 stories in Part 2, They Stopped in Time, were carried over from the 2nd edition. 8 new stories were added. Part 3, They Lost Nearly All. 8 stories were retained. 5 new ones were added. The 4th edition includes the 12 concepts for world service and revises the 3 sections of personal stories as follows. Our new story has been added to Part 1, and 2 that originally appeared in Part 3 have been repositioned there. 6 stories have been deleted. 6 of the stories in Part 2 have been carried over. 11 new ones have been added, and 11 taken out. Part 3 now includes 12 new stories. 8 were removed, in addition to the 2 that were transferred to Part 1. All changes made over the years in the Big Book, AA members' fond nickname for this volume, have had the same purpose: to represent the current membership of Alcoholics Anonymous more accurately, and thereby to reach more alcoholics. If you have a drinking problem, we hope that you may pause in reading one of the 42 personal stories and think, yes, that happened to me. Or more important, yes, I felt like that. Or most important, yes, I believe this program can work for me too. When I first started studying this book and went to the meetings, it was really easy to listen to the stories and not hear the similarities, to be stubborn and be able to hear all the things that weren't like me about the person telling the story. The wisdom is in finding what is the same in every story, what is the same between us all. We're all the same. Whether we're in the rooms or out of the rooms, we're all the same. But if we're in these rooms and we're studying these steps, we have a particular malady. We have a particular affliction. Now, personally, I think that all humans suffer it. Just for people like us, it comes out in a different way. And much like when we hear a grateful alcoholic, something that I hated when I heard it for the longest time because I didn't get it. But if I wouldn't have had my affliction, I may have just been miserable. If I wouldn't have had my numerous bottoms, I wouldn't have been able to see the light, pick myself up, and go to such great heights now, and know that I'm only going up and up and up. And that is the beauty of the program. That is the revelation when we look at the stories in the book and we look at great mythology. They're the same. Overcoming great troubles is it's in mythology, and it's in our lives, and that's why mythic stories are so powerful. And when we find that strength of mythological characters in ourselves and in the stories in the Big Book, that is when we can find our way out. But like all mythological stories and all the stories in the Big Book, it takes work, and a lot of people don't like when they hear the middle of the road, as Mark H. would always say, the middle of the road. I just go to meetings and I'm okay, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you really want the freedom and the happiness and the joy and knowing, like, being rid of the malady, then it's doing the steps and finding your own spiritual path and having a spiritual awakening, a spiritual experience of your own. So I think we'll leave it there. I think that's enough to get us started in conversation for today. What is that? What comes up with you? What's your history with the big book to the point where you are now? What's your history with your story in relation to the stories of success that you've seen in the big book? What's your story in relation to the stories of all the people you know who came and left and never came back, and we know them, right? And there's the sad tragedies of the people that didn't make it, that weren't able to see the light in this lifetime. So where are you at today? All right, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of this. Take care of yourselves. Keep coming back. Do the work. And please, let's close with the prayer of St. Francis. And listen to the prayer. If you have it, read it like you've never read it before. Erase all the thoughts of your past spiritual beliefs, religious beliefs, that especially the ones that you don't like, that you don't agree with, and just be inside this prayer. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me bring love. Where there is offense, let me bring pardon. Where there is discord, let me bring union. Where there is error, let me bring truth. Where there is despair, let me bring hope. Where there is doubt, let me bring faith. Where there is darkness, let me bring your light. Where there is sadness, let me bring joy. O Master, let me not seek as much to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that one receives, it is in self-forgetting that one finds, it is in pardoning that one is pardoned, it is in dying that one is raised to eternal life. Peace. Take care, everyone.